Hi pals, Sabbatical Sara back here again to talk about my sabbatical and your sabbatical maybe, I don't know. So before I ramble, I'm just gonna get into it. Today I want to recommend some books to you that I have read either before my sabbatical or while on my sabbatical, or books that I am currently reading because they've been helpful to me and they might be helpful to you. And they're not necessarily the traditional sabbatical books because, as we talked about in the last video, I am not having a traditional sabbatical. I am not traveling to 12 countries, nor am I currently writing a novel, although I tried that in like the first 2 weeks of my sabbatical. I was like, I'll just write a novel. That's not what I needed. I may someday do that. It's not what I needed right now. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Really unsatisfying number, but here are 8 books I think you should read if you are considering a sabbatical. This one is outrageously good, like 5-star good. I loved this book, loved it. It is Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Katherine May. I think that this book is so important. I also read it while it was winter, which really helped, but if you're going into a sabbatical in any other time of your life, it is still totally applicable and important. I just think that it has some really valuable ideas for living, for resting, for people who work too much, for people who have experienced trauma or mental illness. Like, I just think this is a really important book. So I don't want to oversell it, but this one was the first one I thought of when I considered making this video. So well worth reading. This one I bought as completely a joke because it's about the Grim Reaper going on sabbatical. And I read it in one sitting and it brought me great joy. So it's not particularly helpful, but I do think that when you're going into a sabbatical, even if, you know, you're having a hard time, it's worth thinking about all the things that you can do on your sabbatical, like winning a goldfish or going to the rodeo. But I just love that this was like a goofy, morbid, silly sabbatical comic graphic novel, and I think it's worth a read. Maybe borrow it from the library. I probably didn't need to own my copy, but that was at a point in time when I hadn't addressed the spending money makes me feel good part of my brain yet. So we're working on that. This one is fiction because I do not think that the impulse I had at the beginning of my sabbatical to buy a full library of nonfiction books was helpful because my brain needs to rest as well. So fiction really helps my brain rest and put myself in someone else's shoes and life. And I just think fiction is so valuable. Being part of someone else's story, so good. And this book is about a woman who probably needed to have gone on sabbatical a really long time ago before she disappears. It's funny. It's based in Seattle, which of course I love, and the woman in the main character really hates Seattle, and I love Seattle, but the things she says about Seattle are very true. Very true in a lot of ways. So I think this one is worth a read. I read it very quickly. I enjoyed the heck out of it. It's got great mom-daughter dynamics. It has great, like, kind of a mystery throughout it. It has a lot of, like, personal life drama in the like day-to-day minutia of boring suburban life. I think it's really, really good, and I think that you should read it. Regardless of sabbatical, I just think that like a lot of the things I've experienced leading up to sabbatical and during sabbatical, this woman experiences, and it's described in a way that is like heartbreaking, but also really funny. And sometimes our hearts need to be both filled with laughter and broken. So that's a good one. I should really say the titles. Where'd you go, Bernadette? Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna get better at this. I'm sorry. This book I am currently reading, it is called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. I'm that far through, and it breaks my ever-living heart every time I read it, and it makes me feel like vulnerable and revealed in a lot of ways that I'm not like currently ready to talk about. But this book is about how trauma and PTSD and the things that happen to us that our body doesn't forget, and that even the things we don't really remember super well or that we don't want to think about or talk about come back up in physical symptoms. And wow, like holy neck and nerve pain, Sara. Like, if you were around in January 2020 before the world fell apart, my body just gave up because I have been burnt out since basically 2018. This explains a lot of that. A lot of when we don't deal with the things we're going through, we don't rest, we don't address them. And I'm 7 years into therapy, so I'm addressing my stuff, like I really am, but it's still without rest and without like actual healing, our body's not going to play along. So enjoying that, going to keep reading that. I'm also currently reading The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Again, I have owned this book for so many years, and I always get through the first chapter and go, this is a great idea. I'm totally going to do this. And then when I fail to write my morning pages, I give up. But this time I'm not doing that because I'm on sabbatical and I can do this. And I love this book. I think this book is really important for artists, but for people who want to connect with their creativity in any way. I think that the daily morning pages, which is getting up in the morning or whenever in the day and writing 3 pages longhand of just whatever you're thinking about, so valuable. Like, this is something that I'm working up the courage to tell my sister that she needs to do because I think it's really important. It's the stuff that our brain just like cycles on even when we're doing other things that we should be writing down and getting out and then never rereading. Like, don't revisit it. Just like let it escape and move on. I've also really enjoyed taking myself on artist dates. My favorite artist dates are going to art museums because I love to look at art and just like be bathed in the beauty and like the feeling I get when looking at like a beautiful painting of a tree. I love that. And I'm sure I'll have other artist dates, but right now I'm still working through all of the amazing museums in our area. So reading this, going to stick with it this time. Good. Good job, everyone. I just picked this one up, and the next 3 books are hardcover without their dust jackets because I'm a monster and I hate dust jackets and I like the way they look on my bookshelf like this. Don't come for me. I'm sorry. Ikigai by Héctor García and Francesc Miralles. I'm going to say everyone's name wrong and I'm sorry. This book I picked up at the Jesus, help us, please. The bookstore, the Japanese bookstore that is at Awajimaya. I can say Awajimaya. Kinokuniya. That's still wrong, but I said it. I picked this one up because a friend of mine had actually been talking about this over dinner. Shout out to you, Javon. I don't know that anyone's gonna watch these videos, but if you do, awesome. I picked this up because I love the idea of like the Venn diagram that this articulates of finding what it is that you love to do, what it is that you feel called to do, what it is that makes some money, and what will like help you feel fulfilled. And this book also talks a lot about folks who have lived very, very long lives, like 105 years or more, and the kinds of things that they do. And I loved hearing about that because one of the things in sabbatical I'm really learning is that when I am working and overworking, my life feels very short. Like it feels like it is speeding by and I'm missing everything and there's never enough time and there's never enough of me to go around and like I'm missing my life. But in sabbatical, my life feels long, but in a really good way. Like I'm still figuring it out, but it feels like there is enough time, enough opportunities, enough space to think new thoughts and to learn new things and to be outside and to spend quality time with no timer on it with my family and like spend time putting on my makeup and not styling my hair because there is a rule in sabbatical and that is I do not style my hair. Also, I dyed my hair purple just way too many times in the last 2 years and it is very angry with me. But I love this. I loved hearing about 105-year-old people who are still gardening every day and the kinds of things that they eat and like the wisdom they have to share about continuing to work and use our bodies and use our minds and stay active all the way through our whole life. And I'm still figuring out how to be active and engaged in my life while being on sabbatical. Because if I lay in bed all day, which sometimes I feel like doing, that leads to more depression and not more happiness. But if I also do any hobby super intensely all day long and never stop, I don't feel rested and I don't feel engaged. I just feel like I'm funneling all my toxic work energy into something else. So I'm trying to find the Ikigai in my life and try to find that like blend of things that works correctly, that like makes me healthy and happy and engaged. And this book was helpful. It's a super quick read, but I think it's worth a read. And I'm glad that I own a paper copy because I'm going to come back to it for sure. All right. And then the last two, I've got one fiction and one Brené Brown book that probably the internet has beat you over the head with, but it's fine. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This book, if you read reviews, which don't ever read reviews before you read a book, like read the synopsis, and if it sounds good to you, read it. Read the reviews after. That's my favorite. I use Goodreads. I know that that's sometimes controversial in booktuber world, but I like Goodreads because I've been using it forever and it's just all on there and it's fine. But a lot of reviews really hate this book. There are a lot of people who really hate this book. And I read it in December, at the beginning of my sabbatical, and I really liked it. And it's the story of someone who is very close to death and has the opportunity to review their life and their decisions and themselves and choose what they want to do next. And I think that that can be like a morbid concept. It can be like melodramatic, but I think that at the time that I read this, like I read half of it on an airplane, and I needed it. Like I needed the reminder that I have autonomy, I have agency in my life, and I get to choose to wake up every morning and live. And when you're struggling with anxiety and depression, that question is on your mind. Like, is all of this worth it? And for me, this book was a helpful reminder that we have so many choices and so many opportunities to make changes in our life, to make changes in ourselves, and to choose to live. So I thought that this book was a really good fiction read on a theme of the hell am I doing with my life? I'm on sabbatical. Had a breakdown. I'm doing great. Okay. I also use humor as a coping mechanism. So, all right, the last one, because it was in my bookshelf and I was like, yeah, that's a good one, is Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. The cover art is so beautiful, and I don't know what I did with the dust jacket, because I cannot handle a dust jacket, baby. I cannot handle it. But I'm suggesting this one because it meticulously goes through all the range of human emotions, from like anguish to amusement to like lovelessness to anger to joy to hate. We're having a windstorm. I apologize. And I think that in a sabbatical, you are choosing to be alone with your thoughts and your feelings, which can be overwhelming and can lead you to look for a job on week 2 of your sabbatical, which is a thing that I did. Maybe don't do that. But I think that this one is helpful because we do have a huge range of human emotions. We have there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of like lights and shadows and textures, and our emotions are big and they can overcome us if we don't understand them. And I think that just like going through them all and like thinking about times when I felt that way is helpful. And because I'm on sabbatical and thinking about work because I'm not working, I think it was helpful to address when I feel these emotions in my work, when I think about work, when I think about myself. I thought that was really helpful. So that is book number 8. Those are the 8 books that I have read and reading or suggest to read on sabbatical, or just as a person, because I think they're all great books. And I think that you people out there who are people should read them. If you're watching this and you're not a people, I apologize for excluding you. So that's it. This is a 14-minute video. It can be long enough. This is long. This is long enough. I still can't end a video, but I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad I'm here, and I hope this was helpful.